What happened to Brazil was Brazil's fault.
And welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard De La Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Hello.
It is Monday, June 5th, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. A new video tomorrow. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $2, $4, $7, and $10, and you can get early access to videos, which means you will, well, it's super extremely likely we'll have a new video tomorrow. I can't guarantee it because I don't know how long it takes to put together videos.
You know, if we go back and edit this and remove that can't, you did guarantee it.
Whoa! Don't do that.
The power I have.
so it's a good chance. My review for Everspace 2 finally finished it, and then I got a review copy for a late review copy for Amnesia.
Oh,
the new
awesome.
Amnesia game. I'm really excited for that, so I will start playing that maybe tomorrow or probably Wednesday. And that one I'm also going to do a review for. And I'm also going to do something with Star Trek Resurgence, which came out a week or two ago.
I think it's about 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Style Star Trek game, which I want to talk about here a little bit. We do have news. We're going to get to the Bobby Kotick Variety interview. I'm going to say now, usually what we try to do with stories is we condense them. Here are the bullet points, and then we discuss. The Bobby Kotick interview is just this deluge of it's like a corporate PR person wrote an article. You can just your eyes just start to glaze over how ridiculous some of the stuff in the article is.
He's just like us.
Right?
Bobby
He didn't
Kotick's
care
just like
before
us.
this article. And all of a sudden they do.
So we'll get into that. We'll get into the harassment. That'll be the thing before we go to tidbits and stuff like that. So I'm going to start. I've also been playing Diablo 4.
Yes.
So Diablo 4, Connor, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Richard, have you been playing it?
No, it's one of the... No.
Okay.
I want to. I'm dying to play it, but I can't.
Okay, understood. So far, it's Diablo 4 is extremely good. I'm not a huge Diablo fan. I played the third one with my wife when a few years, what was that, 2 or 3 years after it came out when it came to the 360. Had a lot of fun, but it wasn't like some people, it's like, they play Diablo every year. Yeah. They go through all the seasons and stuff like that. I never did anything like that, but played through Diablo 3. My wife and I also played through the Diablo 2 remaster on the Switch, so we did that. And then, Diablo 4, we started playing it. We played it a crap ton over the weekend. I'm playing as a druid right now. So big takeaways. The art direction I'm a big fan of. The art direction is dark fantasy. It's sort of quote-unquote realistic, grounded, right? It doesn't have the same cartoonishness, right?
A word I like to use is mysticism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, when you think of Blizzard games like World of Warcraft or StarCraft, right? It's like the characters all have a cartooniness to them.
Yes, yeah.
But once you get, and that was true with Diablo 3, in Diablo 4, they've gone back to a much more grounded, even the colors are very drab.
Yeah.
So there's not a whole lot of bright colorization. Even once you get to places where it's green, the green of the grass is still a darker shade of green. But all that I like a lot. So yeah, and it doesn't have as much of the Lilith is a really cool villain. She's really interesting. She doesn't come off as your prototypically evil villain. One of the first things you see her do is inspire a church congregation to fight back against a priest who is chastising them for giving in to sin. So in some sense, it's the first thing you see her do is something you may have some form of not necessarily you don't agree with murder, but you can sort of relate to, right? Because you have this priest in this poor town who's chastising coming down on the congregation, and then she appears and she's like, follow me, give in to sin, and they take out the priest. So she's an interesting villain. A lot of the shots for the cutscenes I think are really cool. The way that so there are a couple different ways Diablo tells. You have dialogue, And then you get cutscenes where it's like the camera will hover and two characters are talking, whatever.
Okay.
But then you get the cutscenes where it's an actual, and sometimes you get the pre-rendered stuff, but then you get like the in-engine cutscenes where there is actually shots and camera placement and stuff like that. And some of the cinematography, some of the blocking, I think is the term, is actually really freaking cool. There is one scene where there's a character, I won't spoil anything, names or anything. There's a character in a desk, sitting at a desk in his office, and he's writing. And all of a sudden he looks up and there's just a door in the middle of the room. And he walks into this door and there's a hallway. And at the end of the hallway is Lilith. And Lilith starts walking toward him, and they know each other. And so he backs up out of the door, and then and this door is like, it's a magical door, so it's in the middle of nowhere, or it's in the middle of his room leading to what should be nowhere. She walks out of the door, and as she walks out of the door, the shot angle goes from like her face and his face as they're backing out, and then it goes above them as they're exiting the door, and her wings unfurl and like kind of hover over him as she's walking at him, which is like a really ominous demonic shot. And it was so freaking cool when I saw it. So there's a little more thought put into, because like in Diablo 3, I don't remember, like obviously Blizzard's cutscenes are always crazy and over the top and, super, but I don't remember like this much thought being put into smaller story sequences in Diablo 3. It was only like the big moments.
Yeah, there's like four cutscenes in Diablo 3.
Yeah.
They were all very cool, but they didn't happen
so
very
this
often.
one, I think they did a little more storytelling when it comes to the visuals and stuff like that. So I'll dig into Diablo 4 a little bit more, but so far really enjoying it, and it's like legitimately good. I think I don't want to get bomb threats, but I think it's a legitimate Game of the Year contender if you care about that kind of stuff so far for me. But yeah, whether or not it'll win Game of the Year is a different discussion. Okay, I want to talk about Star Trek Resurgence a little bit before I leave it to you guys. So I was really excited for Star Trek Resurgence because Star Trek specifically is a universe and a IP that lends itself to the Telltale style game.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's perfect. Yeah. You can take entire Star Trek episodes and you can just reimagine them as a Telltale episode, right? Because it's story heavy dialogue, whatever. So, Star Trek Resurgence, I was excited for. It released. I've played it a little bit. I'm planning on doing some kind of video about it. And I've been somewhat disappointed for a few reasons. I have not finished it yet. So there's some stuff that I'm not sure how it's going to turn out. But I think writing Star Trek is difficult for a few reasons. First of all, Star Trek has always had a bit of an identity crisis. People right now talk about like Star Trek Discovery and Picard as if they are the first bad Star Trek shows or movies. They are bad. They're horrifically bad, but they're not the first time Star Trek has had a problem figuring out what to do with itself. And you could go all the way back to The Wrath of Khan, which a lot of people really like, and I really like. But The Wrath of Khan has a very, very dark, sinister tone. You watch a guy commit suicide, unwillingly commit suicide. So The Wrath of Khan, again, you could, if you want to talk about like how dark should Star Trek be, you could go all the way back to The Wrath of Khan and say, look at this. The second Star Trek movie was super dim and dark. So it's always had a problem, and like the original series was not that way. Original series is uplifting and it's positive. And it's not just that the characters live in a positive world, but like violence is handled differently. You don't have alien design is different, right? You wouldn't see something like the xenomorph in the Star Trek universe, not because it may not exist, but that's just not the kind of sci-fi that it is. It's not about hunting down aliens and shooting them, right? Although sometimes it is, and that's the debate. But so writing Star Trek is difficult because it's like, okay, how are we going to handle this? What do we want to do? Do we want to make Star Trek Discovery and alienate 50 years of Star Trek fandom? Or do we want to write good Star Trek and have it where it can set itself in the 1990s, something like that? And then once you decide that, then there's even more difficult things because there's a famous I'm not sure if it's apocryphal or if it's official, but there was this thing that you'll hear writers say about writing for Star Trek, which was it was difficult because there wasn't, it was like a soft rule that you couldn't have internal conflict between the crew, right? So you couldn't write two characters hating each other. You couldn't create drama that way because the characters, they may not agree with one another, but they're supposed to get along, respect one another. Respect each other.
Always even the base knowledge I know of, always at the end of an episode, everything would be resolved amicably.
Yeah, and in the original series, you'd have the ending joke, but McCoy would say, "Well, Spock, I think you smiled there," and and they would fly off, and it would be silly, whatever. So with this rule of now, I think it's debatable, how hard of a rule that was, because you can talk about characters like Ensign Rowe or other characters that sort of brought conflict onto the main cast. But again, that's something you have to decide when you write Star Trek. So to bring it all around to Star Trek Resurgence, that's all the stuff Resurgence I think has to take into consideration. And then they have to decide, okay, what else are we going to do gameplay wise? The game so far is fine, but it is not finished. It is in an early access state right now. It's really strange. So textures are bad everywhere, and not like they don't load in, like they don't exist.
Oh wow.
I took a video clip of a shuttlecraft landing, and the what's the ship's name? The Resolute. The Resolute is the ship you're on. The shuttlecraft landing in the Resolute's bay, and the shuttlecraft just looked like plastic. There was no texture whatsoever. It looked like something you'd see the making of a Pixar movie, and 6 months from release, it's like you see some clip where they haven't fully textured it or something. That's what it looked like, and I was like, wow, okay, that's really bad. Nothing feels good in the game. You fly a shuttlecraft a couple times, feels bad. Shooting a phaser feels bad. Walking around doesn't feel good. You can't with the thumbstick, you can't change the y-axis. You can't invert it, which has been in every game I've ever played.
It's kind of the standard, yeah.
And what confuses me more is, I'm not an expert in this, but I know that with engines, like the Unreal Engine, when you make a game in Unreal, the suite comes with here are your game's basic control options.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can add or whatever. So I always assumed that most engines, no matter what you were using, was gonna have the engine itself has a change the y-axis of the controller. You don't have to add that to the game. So again, a small thing, but it's a small thing on top of all these other things. Dialogue is broken. A character will start a line and then stop and then start the line again and then stop and then say the next line, because the game doesn't stop. It's just their dialogue stops and their mouth keeps moving. So that's get on the brick, come with me. An entire line of dialogue will skip twice, and then so a bunch of weird stuff like that. The lighting is weird. Characters look plasticky, which I know is an early access thing. Characters' hair is all shiny, so the lighting is off.
I thought this released. Is it
That's
early
what
access?
I thought.
Or, okay.
And if it is early access, it doesn't say on the PlayStation Store. It may say on Epic. I don't know, but on the PlayStation Store, it's a game. There's no indication that it's an early access state.
Getting to the bottom of this.
It's really strange. Reviews are all in the 70s and stuff.
Oh no, there's a lot of Star Trek games.
So, which I'm not surprised by, but all that's pretty disappointing. Because it does make it and you can hear what seems what's the term I'm looking for? When you put something in a placeholder. I was about to say when you put something in a place to hold it. Placeholder. There's a lot of place holding sounds. So there's one scene where two characters are in the shuttle bay and they're talking, and you can hear ambient footsteps and ambient voices that are supposed to be the other people in the shuttle bay, but there's nobody else in the shuttle bay, or there's not very many people in the background walking. So it's okay, clearly this is a placeholder, or they just put ambient sound there. There's one scene that takes place in the ship's med bay, and you hear this beeping, this ambient beeping. That's all over the place in Star Trek, but this beeping's loud and extremely repetitive. So through this 15-minute section of the game, you just hear beep, beep, boop, beep, 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 boop, beep, like really loud or really prominent, the entire sequence. And it's like there's an important thing that happens and it just beep, beep, boop, beep, like the entire time. And I don't know why. And I don't know if it's the state of the game on the PS4 and the PC is better. I don't know. But on the PS4, it just is not complete. It's not finished. It just doesn't. It looks like a game that it looks
Someone
like.
said this is the most 6 out of 7 10 game ever.
Yeah, it's just not a. It's not like it doesn't look like it's a finished product.
Yeah, there's a lot of things. A lot of people are in agreement with what you were saying. It looks like.
Now the story isn't. And sorry to go back to the writing Star Trek thing. There are other things that if you watch Star Trek a lot, you kind of know. So for example, one of the first scenarios you get in the game is you're on the ship. One of the two characters is the commander. Commander's second in command. Captain is the captain of the ship, right? When the captain leaves, either when they leave the bridge or when they leave the ship, the highest rank officer is now in command.
Mm-hmm.
So, you watch Next Generation, he goes, number one, you have the bridge. Picard walks off. Riker's in command, right? So Riker makes the decisions until Picard comes back. That's Starfleet protocol. So in the game, one of the first scenarios that happens is you're on the bridge and you're docked at a starbase. The captain is on the starbase, not on the ship. That's important. And you have two crewmen who are out on the whole of the ship doing some repairs. Well, an ion storm comes in, which is like a fake, electricity storm in the Star Trek universe.
Space storms.
And the ion storm's going to hit the ship and it could damage the crew. So you have a couple ways to deal with this. You could energize the shield's hull, polarize the hull, which will protect it from the ion storm and protect your crewmen, but it'll knock off the docking moors and it could damage the docking moors and maybe the space station. Or you could do something else, another option, which would put the crewmen in danger, but not the ship and maybe not the space station. So those are your two options, right? You either put maybe the space station in some danger or you definitely put your crewmen in danger, but not the space station. Okay, as someone who watches Star Trek a lot, your first duty is to the ship's crew, right? That's the first thing you have to protect. So the obvious answer there is, okay, we're going to polarize the hull, we're going to blow the docking rings off, and we're going to protect our crewmen. And the captain chimes in and tells you to do the opposite thing. So it's one of those gameplay things. Now, I understand why it's there because you have to have conflict and you have to force the player to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so you give this other force telling you to do the other thing. So you have to have the other option. But it's one of those things where if you're a Star Trek fan, it's like, Captain, you have you're not on the bridge. You're not even on the ship. You have zero leeway to tell the commander
You have no power.
what to do. So it's like, it's a nerdy thing, but it's like, maybe do something else. Also,
I know how that is.
the captain is weirdly sketchy. So the game begins, and the Resolute suffered some giant accident, and that's where it lost its first commander. So you're a commander replacing the commander that died. And this accident that they suffered was a scientific thing, right? So it's like, okay, so they were trying to make some scientific breakthrough. You bring on you go onto the ship. The captain is like, follow me to my ready room. I need to have a talk with you. So okay, you go on the captain. The captain is Captain Solano, right? Who kind of looks like J. Jonah Jameson, which is funny. But I want Spider-Man. That's the wrong universe, sir. So you go into the captain's ready room. And he's like, basically he says, listen, it was my fault that the accident happened. It was a lack of leadership. So I make decisions sometimes. And if they're decisions that sound sketchy, it's because they're the best decisions for my career. And I can't make another screw up. Will you follow me no matter what? And it's like, instant red flags all over the place. Cause whoa, hold on, slow down, Durbo. You can't bring on your commander and be like, you're loyal to me or else. That's clear. It's comedically antagonistic. So it's one of those things where, I don't know, am I being pretentious? I don't think so, because if you're writing Star Trek, this is the kind of stuff you have to, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a little silly. Anyway, I'll put all my thoughts into a video or something. But it does not feel good to play at all. It has hurt me. Anyway, okay, you guys can talk about what you've been playing. Go.
I've been playing more Zelda, of course. Nothing much more to say about it. I'm gonna start hacking away at like the major things, getting all the memories and finishing that main storyline. So I beat my first Lionel.
Oh, cool.
I mean, I've beaten them before
guys.
in Breath of the Wild, but I mean, in this game, I've beaten them. But it really is very awkward for me because I know that probably building something would help you more in the fight. But because like that's just not how the 30 plus years of like Zelda I've been playing operates, can't get over it. So it took me a while to beat him, but because incidentally, I'm also good at like dodging and blocking and stuff.
Okay, cool.
It was fine. I did die a lot, but I ended up he gave me the 3 times damage bow, so I'm great. I'm good with that. I started playing Sifu though.
Oh wow, okay.
I started playing Sifu because I ended up. Sorry, you know what? Let me rewind. I ended up beating Jedi the new Jedi one. Survivor,
Jedi Walker,
which I've been making this joke since I beat the game, but they should call it Jedi Climber because that's all you fucking do in that game is just climb shit.
Got him.
And yeah, obviously you do other stuff, but God, I got to get to this place. Looks like I'm climbing the entire way over there, or wall running, or whatever.
Jedi
and at the end of it, it was good. Gameplay wise, it was great. It was wonderful and everything, but like story wise, how things happen, it was fine. It's just so weird to kind of, once again, we keep talking about this, have a long running franchise happen for so long, and you want to introduce new things, but those new things don't mesh with anything that you already established.
Yep.
And I know particularly like probably the biggest thing I kept poking at was the Night Sister, or the Night Sisters from Dathomir.
Oh, okay.
Because they're witches.
Yeah, they use magic.
They use magic, and they can do things.
Which was part of the extended universe before Disney.
Sure, gutted it, but they're bringing it back, I guess. But it's just weird because she gives you in a specific part, she does 2 things for you because you get a partner character that runs around with you at times. There are, the doors, the bay doors, are they called that in Star Wars? Where it's just like
a blast door.
It's like a force field door.
Oh, okay.
It's green and it's a force field door. You can't go through those. So throughout the game, you're encountering these, and you're like, oh, there's probably something in there later. I'll have to like keep an eye out for that. Well, there's a part in the game where she throws something to you, like a little device, and as soon as you grab it, now you can go through those, but you dash through them, and it just doesn't affect you when you dash through them. But she just tosses it to you and doesn't explain what it is. It doesn't explain like, just here you go, and then now you can do it. And it was just like, oh, okay, thanks for
somewhat anticlimactic.
Yeah, giving that explanation. And so there's soon after there's a really, really cool chase scene. It was really awesome. It was kind of this chase scene between this big monstrous machine that was trying to drill in one of the planets. But she casts a spell that allows you to dash through her portals that she creates, which is something you can do in Star Wars, I guess. And it was a really cool sequence, but it was also just really weird because just the context of Star Wars and just being able to do this thing. So it was this fighting with my inner self of like, this is really cool, but this is stupid. Like, and it wasn't like, it was just stupid in the context of like, how things work. And I have been also fighting with myself the last month playing Star Wars and Zelda and complaining about me getting older because a couple years ago, this is nothing I probably would have complained about because it's just like, I'm playing a video game, this is it. But now it's for some reason, like I can't fight these, like, that's stupid. Like these like inconsistencies I keep finding. And yeah, it's happening with Zelda too, and I'm trying to stop myself because I'd rather just like enjoy it. But whatever. Anyways, I beat Fallen Order, and that was like I said, that was good. I don't know if they're gonna do a third one. I think it ends pretty well, but there's nothing I can foresee happening, but
because the more you go on that storyline, the closer you get to episode 4.
Yeah,
which is a problem.
It is a big problem.
That's why you gotta set things after Return of the Jedi, and they also have to not suck.
Yeah.
So.
Or like we always talk about, the High Republic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's.
Let's go before episode 1.
I think the problem probably is executives are dumbasses. So you're like, we're gonna make a Star Wars game. Oh, where's your Darth Vader? Oh my God, you stupid motherfucker! We don't need Darth Vader in this. Or it's the same thing with Star Trek. Spock is in Star Trek Resurgence. So you go to an executive. I want to make a Star Trek game. Is Kirk or Spock in it? If that makes you feel better, we'll throw. It's 6,000 years after Next Gen, but sure, we'll put Spock in it to make you feel better. Yeah.
Let their stories end. Goddamn,
you got a message.
I didn't know that was on. I apologize.
Apple's coming at the worst time. They're asking you if they want to buy.
No,
you want to buy their $3,500 headset.
If I want to install the update, that's been waiting for months.
We don't want your updates and we don't want your headsets. Apple.
If I update, it goes slower. That's how it works. So I started playing Sifu, and I like it a lot. I love that type of the gameplay that's based off of counters and parrying and stuff like that. It is very difficult. It's difficult because it is simply a game that you need to be focused on, but also it's difficult because they don't tell you things. Like, you learn by playing, and it's frustrating at points because things will just happen to enemies will become empowered somehow, and they become way more powerful than they were before. Their health bar refills up, and they have different moves, and it's kind of like, why is this happening? Why did this just happen? You didn't tell me why this happened. And so even I had to go onto forums to figure out what was going on, and people were like, oh yeah, there's certain parameters that they don't tell you. If you meet, then a normal enemy will just kind of take a drug or something, and then he'll get super powerful.
Interesting.
And I was like, wow, okay. It has a really cool system that I enjoy, which is feeds into the roguelike element of Sifu. Whereas you go through the game and defeat enemies, you gain XP and you gain a score for the level, which when you come to certain shrines, there's usually about 3 or 4 of them in a level. You can use those XP points to purchase a buff of some kind. It's not permanent. It only stays for that particular run you have. And then there are segments when you die or when you get knocked out. You can upgrade certain abilities if you have them there. They will unlock moves for you or abilities for you. And there are certain ones that if you upgrade it, let's say 5 or 6 times, you will gain that permanently. So it'll be available when you start your next run just off the bat. You don't have to worry about it. The main draw of Sifu was, of course, dying. If you die, you start at age 22, I believe, 20 or 22. And if you die, you get older each time you die. But the way it calculates that is how many deaths you have had. So if I died once, the next time I die, of course, the counter goes up to 2 deaths. The next time I die, my age raises by 2.
Oh, okay. So it's exponential.
So it's exponential, yeah. So if I die 5 times, I'm at 25. Next time I die, I age up to 30.
Okay.
Your max age is 70. So if you die anytime at 70 or past 70, it's game over. You'll have to restart the entire run
Die
over.
forever.
Yeah, in that instance. But you are the child of a mentor who was killed by the villain. And so you trained yourself to go hunt down the villain and his crew that was there the night your dad died. And so I think they're looking for the amulet that you have. It's a long string amulet, and it has coins on it. It has 7 coins or 6 coins, because that's how many times you die. And when you die, you come to a menu where you can upgrade, and then you can revive yourself. And if you get designated ages, so 30, 40, 50, 60, one of those coins will shatter, which signifies that you're running out of time.
Okay.
But it is very cool. I went through I'm middle of the second level, or no, I got to the boss of the second stage. There are 5 stages. And the first time I went through the first stage, got my ass handed to me by the boss, of course. Beat him the second time. And as I was playing the second level, I thought to myself, well, I'll go see if I can grind a little bit and I've been playing the game about like an hour at this point. When I went back to the first level, because you can choose to go back to the older levels that you were playing, went through that first level, and not only did I like blaze through that level and have a better understanding of the enemies and their attack patterns, but I had found another route that had cut out probably about 40 to 50% of the level.
Wow.
And it took me a different, like just a slightly different way, but that of course adds into the replayability. There are collectibles to get, and there was like a door right before the boss I couldn't open because I didn't have like a key or something, and I don't know where to get that key. But you can talk with people sometimes. You have your directional buttons will be your responses. You can choose to be antagonistic if you want. Sometimes you'll only have one answer because you're asking a question, or other times you can choose to. Great example is there was right before the boss there was a big enemy, two smaller ones, and they ask you a question, and I chose to answer in a pacifist way. And he came up to me slowly, and he was talking to me, but in the middle of him talking, I threw my weapon at him, and it ended up like knocking him down for a one hit, like execution or knockout or whatnot, which does not happen with bigger enemies. And I haven't tried it the other way, but I assume that if you answer differently and antagonize them, it's going to be a longer fight and they'll be ready for you. Whereas I was able to attack them by surprise. But very good. Like I said, very difficult, but it is something that is fun to jump into and beat up some guys John Wick style. So
cool.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Connor.
Yes. I just been putting more time into Civ 6 and XCOM 2. In my Civ 6 play, I'm playing as Rome. I don't know what happened, but I exploded in terms of culture and science.
Nice.
And you know the meme with Civ 6, it's swordsman versus a machine gun. I'm hitting that point. I'm about to unlock the research or the technology for battleships.
Jeez.
And there are two countries that have been at war with me that haven't been able to get over to me because they're on a different continent, and they haven't unlocked the ability to travel over open seas yet.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's so cool because sorry to interrupt, but in RTS, I know Civ isn't exactly an RTS, it kind of is, but
sure,
but in games like Dune 2000 or Command and Conquer, like I would be sitting there minding my own business, and it's just like out of the black fog of war, like it's just guys coming are already like ready to kick my ass. So it's like you're that guy, like you're just ready. They don't know what they're gonna walk into. It's awesome.
So what led up to this is 3 wars.
Okay.
One war happened because one of the civs, Mapuche, they had the only nearby resource of iron, and I'm playing as Rome, so you need a lot of iron.
Okay.
So they unfortunately had to go.
Cut them out of the equation.
Right, well, that's one way to put it.
Also, they had like a very weak starting location, and they were just like inundated with barbarians, so they were just essentially a city-state at this point.
Okay.
It was a quick war, but it upset Poundmaker of the Cree and Pedro II of Brazil. Anyway, after that war, they just kept denouncing me and, trying to bully me into giving them resources. So I made an example of Poundmaker. Took over most of his nation, burned the rest of it, left him with his capital city.
As you do.
And then the explosion happened, and I just progressed past everyone. And then I got the justified war option for colonial conquest for Poundmaker. And I'm like, well, he has a really big university there. Like, there's a lot of science coming out of there. I'm going to take that.
Okay.
And Brazil didn't like that. And you know what? What happened to Brazil was Brazil's fault. Because after I took one city off Brazil, I gave them an option for peace.
You only took one city.
It was a fringe city. It had a population of 1.
Of course.
They had just founded it.
You said you made an aggressive action as a sovereign state and said, no, what are you going to do about it?
No, here's the thing. I offered them a white peace, we just stop the war, nothing happens. You know what their response was? Pay us. So I'm like, all right, took a few more cities. Do you want peace? Pay us.
Yeah.
All right, burn the rest down.
Okay, well.
And then Japan and the Zulu declared war on me, but they can't get to me because they haven't unlocked the technology yet.
But you're about to have a navy.
But I'm about to have Iowa-class battleships.
against what? Against like Man of Wars or something? What's the first thing you unlock in Civ 6?
Well, they have biremes and quadremes because they haven't unlocked the technology for caravels, which allow them to travel over open ocean.
Okay, well.
But they're getting there. Here's the thing, though. I keep saying that I exploded in technology and culture. It's primarily been culture. So Civ 6 broken up into eras, ancient era through the information era, classical, medieval, Renaissance, industrial, revolution, modern. Culturally, I'm in the atomic era.
Okay.
Technologically, I'm just getting out of the industrial era.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
The next closest country to me in terms of cultural growth is in the Renaissance.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're a little ahead.
I'm a lot ahead.
Okay, well, man, Civ 6 seems so fun. I need to get into this.
And because of the circumstances where I'm just always at war because I can't get peace to these two nations because they're like, oh, we can still beat you because they haven't taken any losses yet. Because I haven't bothered to go over to their continent and with a shock and awe show of force. So they refuse to surrender or refuse to just agree to stop the war, not necessarily surrender.
Sure.
So because of that, I've had to gear my civilization more towards a military mindset. I uttered a phrase I never thought I would utter because as you progress through, you unlock certain political ideologies. And I thought to myself, oh man, am I going to have to go fascist?
Well, okay.
And you know what? Kind of have to.
Okay, well, it's just a game, right?
Yes.
Just a game.
Yes.
Are we ready for
Yeah.
the break? Hit the commercial. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Richard,
Oh,
you want
I'm
to tell
so
us
sorry.
what's going on with the...
I will with Schreier guy and Redfall. Let me scroll down.
I can see it. You can see it's about to happen.
Sorry, it's going to happen. So Jason Schreier had a story
Schreier report.
over at Bloomberg about the inside of the making of Redfall. More than a dozen people who worked on the game said that Redfall suffered from unclear direction, frequent attrition, and a perennial lack of staff. When Redfall development began in 2018, ZeniMax, which owned them at the time before Microsoft did, right? ZeniMax owned Bethesda. ZeniMax owned Bethesda.
But they still own Bethesda, don't they? Because
Microsoft bought ZeniMax, which...
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Arcane is a subsidiary of ZeniMax, and ZeniMax is a subsidiary of Microsoft.
And I think and Bethesda is a subsidiary of ZeniMax.
Correct.
But
Yes.
ZeniMax is like a parent company.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we say Microsoft bought Bethesda, it's a colloquialism for
They bought ZeniMax.
ZeniMax, yeah.
Okay, we got that.
ZeniMax was strongly urging developers to make service-based games and implement microtransactions. What else is new? After Prey, leadership at Arcane Austin wanted to make something more broadly appealing, which would become Redfall. Morale suffered at Arcane. Veteran workers who weren't interested in developing a multiplayer game left, and by the end of Redfall's development, about 70% of the Austin staff who had worked on Prey had left. Once Microsoft bought ZeniMax back in September of 2020, the company maintained a hands-off approach and allowed ZeniMax to operate with great autonomy.
So there were a few revelations here that I thought were really interesting. One was the thing you just said, because Microsoft has said that that's how they want to run their games. That's something that Phil Spencer has said. We want to let our creators blah, blah, blah. And at least in this story, that seems like Microsoft was hands off. And I think that's how companies ought to be. especially big companies like Microsoft. Still don't think they should buy Activision Blizzard, but when it comes to how companies should act, whatever the case, I think that's how they should do it. I know these things are complicated, but I'm fine because like with Anthem, right? And we talked with Mark Dara about this. There was the Jason Schreier story about it. It was like, okay, so why did Anthem exist? And it was never characterized as EA executive leadership, whatever, Andrew Wilson telling BioWare, you need to have a looter shooter.
Mm-hmm.
It was a little more subtle. It was more akin to maybe we should make a looter shooter because it would be good for X, Y, and Z reasons, right? So it's a systemic thing, not necessarily a mandate, right? And that's the same thing with this microtransaction. The microtransaction thing was not a mandate.
Mm-hmm.
It was more of like a request or a strong urge, right? Not necessarily I'm dictating you have to do it this way. Now, I think that may not be necessarily as bad because it's not like, I don't know, legally blinding or whatever, but I still think it's horrible because it doesn't have to be that way. And you have a bigger company meddling in what a smaller company is doing. And this is the result of that. So maybe it's nuance. Maybe all the blame doesn't fall on ZeniMax. But I still think I feel like sometimes you can't put the blame somewhere. I think problems are so complicated. It's like, can you blame one person? Is it a systemic problem? I don't know. But when it comes to something like this, it's like, it doesn't sound like Arcane was looking to do a microtransaction thing right off the bat. Was looking to do a live service thing right off the bat. So if ZeniMax requests for something like that instigated this, then I think you can just look at ZeniMax and say, okay, this was all your fault. And I'm not sure what the people at Arcane are supposed to do. If your parent company is lording over you saying, it'd be nice if you did this. And it's like, okay, well, I have to protect my company. I can say no and I can do my own thing. But if it doesn't sell well, then people get laid off. And I have to think about that decision I made for the rest of my life.
And how much of ZeniMax's possible, like, hey, you should do this was in response to Prey's underwhelming performance.
Yeah. And
that's a whole another can of worms as well.
Yeah. So I think with Prey, there has been like and maybe I may be perceiving this completely wrong, but I think there is a revisionist, like, historical thing going on with Prey, because Prey was not a very good game.
It didn't review well. Yeah.
It had elements that were absolutely stunning. It had elements that were incredible. When it came to, like, that's one of those games where a lot of games get the immersive sim tag. I think that's nebulous and ambiguous, and a lot of games it's like, it's an immersive sim because you can stealth or you can attack. It's like, okay, calm down. But with Prey, it really, I feel like it earned that immersive sim tag. There was a thing where you had to get into, and I liked a lot of Prey, you had to get into an office, like a side office, and there was a window with like a little talking hole that you would like talk through or whatever, and the door was locked. So there are like 4 ways to get in that room. You could put something on the shelf, and then you could like become it because you could like transform into an object.
Yes.
And then you could like roll yourself. There was also, I had like a Nerf gun with me, and the computer on the other side of this locked room had open door on it. So I used the Nerf gun to shoot at the computer, and it hit the open door button, and the door unlocked. So that's how I got into the room. So lots of little stuff like that. But the game had a big like 4 really big flaws that brought the entire thing down. But anyway, this discussion's not about Prey. I just think it's important to say that because I think sometimes people talk about Prey as if it was like a masterpiece that didn't sell.
I think a lot of the like fans who believe that are a lot more vocal than the ones who didn't like it. That's what I see.
Yeah, because I enjoyed a lot of Prey, but I don't think it was a masterpiece that didn't sell. It was an extremely flawed game that didn't sell. Now, is that... Going back to this discussion, is ZeniMax's actions here, are they warranted? And I'm going to go ahead and say probably not. This probably didn't have to go down. This probably didn't have to happen. Arcane didn't have to lose a bunch of talent because one game underperformed. And I think it's really as simple as that. And, I don't know. If I was Phil Spencer... I would be a little upset about this because was this a creative decision, Phil, or was this we're ZeniMax, we want a looter shooter. Give me pictures of Spider-Man, go. And so this was the result. And this was a big game for Microsoft. And when it came out and it was bad, it was all bad news for Microsoft. So if we rewind the clock and I say, hey, Phil, Arcane, which is, this is Arcane Austin, but still a studio that's known for not necessarily doing this thing. They're working on this thing. It doesn't sound like they decided to do it of their own volition. You want a good game. This doesn't seem like the ingredients for a good game. What can you do? I don't know if Phil Spencer, obviously I don't think Phil Spencer himself can make these kinds of decisions, but when it comes to Microsoft's autonomy, I wonder, can they step in? Can they say, no, stop fucking around. Why don't you let Arcane be Arcane? They're not going to make microtransaction looter shooter hellscape. Sorry, ZeniMax, right? Or whatever.
Right.
Or maybe Microsoft can provide a little more security and say, ZeniMax wants this. Well, we're not going to let them. I don't know. I don't know what they legally can and can't do. But when it comes to the autonomy, if you see a studio like this and something like this is going down, I do wonder if Microsoft can't step in. And if I were in Microsoft's shoes, I would bend the autonomy in that direction. I would stop these kinds of like corporate meddling games from happening. When we talk about like when you watch a documentary about a movie, it is never the case that it's like, well, we had it this way, and then our chief financial officer said this, and oh man, that's why the movie is great. That is never the case when you're like watch a movie about a documentary about the making of Alien or the making of. It's never like, oh well, one of the one of the Hollywood suits came in and suggested this, and it was amazing, right? In the documentary about DS9, Cisco didn't have a beard for the first couple seasons because they were afraid that if they gave him, the studio executives were afraid if they gave him a beard, his iconic look, he would become too urban. That's a quote from an actual human being studio executive, right? It was literally, our white audience will be scared of a black man. So that's the kind of decisions that executives make because they don't think through the prism of creativity. They think through the prism of what's marketable, regardless of the ethics of that. So if we want to prey on people with microtransactions, that's what's marketable. But you know what? You should make the decision. Anyway, go ahead, Richard. I'm sorry.
No. I was just, it was in conjunction with the Star Trek thing.
I mean, if you want to talk Star Trek.
It's not important.
Well, you had me intrigued.
It's the same it's the same argument they made with Nichols and Shatner kissing in the 60s.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing. Anyways, I always have to. This is somewhat directly related to Redfall, but I always have to warn people. The biggest one recently was Callisto Protocol, where you had like, from the same person who did Dead Space, and it's like, well, no, that's not like, that doesn't mean it's going to be good. That doesn't mean that it's going to.
It's not the same.
Be
team.
the same, we see that 70% of the people who worked on that game that has a fan base was not there to make this game. And I think that I like the idea of leaving people to their own devices. I'm very much like that myself. But I think sometimes it's probably necessary if you see that there is unclear direction going on, or if you see that there's something that's kind of not coming together as it should. Another example recently would be Ghost Story Studios, the Kevin Levine's.
Oh yeah, because he said that he was that story is really complicated.
It is, but
it is one of those things.
What I'm saying is that you're giving someone who can't hammer down what they want,
you give a creative. Yes.
So
there is in the eternal battle between commerce and art.
Yeah,
somebody does have to step in and be the adult and say you can't do pre-production for 10 years.
Right. And so as much as I love to look at Phil Spencer and be like, yeah, great job. Like, yeah, leave these guys alone. Let them cook. If you're looking at everything, I feel like you still have to keep an eye on things just to make sure everything is going somewhat smoothly, because Redfall really proverbially was the straw that broke the camel's back for Xbox fans, at least what we've been hearing since its release, because they need to knock it out of the park with the showcase and subsequent releases coming
Starfield's
soon.
big now.
Yeah.
Well, it was big. Now it's even bigger because it's like their only big quote unquote game this year, right?
Well, unless they have some surprises in a couple days here. But yeah.
No, I think I agree, and that would be when we have them on the show. That would be an interesting discussion. It's like I hate myself, whatever, but it's the baseball manager, right? When do you take the pitcher out? What are the signs? When do you step in as an executive and say, okay, I'm going to make the decision for you? Now, I think when it comes to studios like companies like ZeniMax, when we hear about this meddling, that's the kind of meddling that shouldn't exist because that doesn't create good products. That create shit like this, or create shit like Anthem, or create shit like microtransactions and blah blah blah.
Oh, my freaking ears.
So okay, are we?
I just have a question.
Oh yeah.
With how Redfall was like not only handled but put out, do you think there should be more robust QA given the past like 5 years of games with like major titles being released?
I mean,
partially or completely unfinished.
QA is a really unfortunate place to be because I think they not only need all the help they get, but unfortunately, if anything goes wrong, it's on them as well.
And I also think that it may be out of QA's hands at some point, right? Because, it's not
when
like
the game goes gold.
Because it's not like quality assurance can look at higher ups and say, we demand more time, right? Because QA is at like this different level of authority. So executives want games to come out in certain quarters so that they can report certain things on quarterly reports. They don't like delaying things very much. So at some point now, I don't know what goes into a decision for making a game. I think is for releasing a game is complicated because sometimes it's like we're just going to release it no matter what. Other times, maybe you delay it because, this is one of those really complicated discussions. I wouldn't put the blame on QA.
No, I'm not saying blame QA.
Yeah.
I'm saying rather, I guess in a roundabout way I was trying to say, should obviously executives be listening more to QA?
Yeah, I don't know. That seems like a really simplistic way to put it. So I don't know. Because problems like this, because what happened with like Redfall is not just a QA problem, right? It has all these factors. It's a systemic problem. So I'm sure that that's maybe a solution or part of the solution. Just like paying your workers better, just like paying your QA workers better is part of the solution. But is that a major column in the systemic problem? I don't know. That would be something like Jason Schreier would know extremely well, especially with all the times he has interviewed overworked and underpaid QA workers. But I would say off the top of my head, I don't think there's like I don't know. I've never heard of a game releasing in a poor state and it's like, well, QA just slacked off the entire time. It's like, I don't know.
The fans do. The consumers blame them, though.
Well, yeah, but I mean, come on, what do they know?
They don't know anything.
Morons.
Yeah, gamers TM. But yeah, I mean, the QA testers of that game will hear it from.
Yes, and this is another thing that Mark Dara talked about is like, this person. Or remember when the Mass Effect Andromeda came out, and it was like the people found the developers responsible for the girls' facial animations. And it's like, all the things that go into that person fail. First of all, it's not like that person didn't try or didn't work hard.
Yeah.
And all the things that went into Mass Effect Andromeda not being good is so complex and so systemic that putting the blame on one person is ridiculous. And it's way oversimplistic. Why? And no developer wants their game to fail. Nobody wants this to happen. With Star Trek Resurgence, I'm sure they don't like the state the game is in. Now, as a critic, you have to point it out because you're just being honest. But developers want to make the best game possible. So that's why I always turn to just blaming executives because fuck them. And we'll talk about an executive soon. But they're easy to blame. But I also think systemic problems, you need power to change those things. And a QA tester doesn't have a whole lot of power. A guy making way too much money being on the board of ZeniMax, he does have the power. Or she. We're being progressive. And they should both do it. Okay, we're moving on. Connor, what's going on at
the
Meta?
Meta Quest-
Speaking of executives.
From the cesspit known as Meta, Quest 3 has been announced.
Hey.
It is going to release this fall. A 128 gigabyte version will be $500. Not many specifics, but it's wireless, and Meta says it will combine their highest resolution display and pancake optics to make content look even better than ever. It is compatible with Quest 2 games. Starting June 4th, Quest 2 will drop its price from $299 for the 128 gigabyte, or to $299 for its 128 gigabyte version, and $349 for its 256.
Yeah, so there, like I said, the announcement didn't include a lot of specifics.
Mm-hmm.
So when they say their highest resolution, I don't know if it was they have a new resolution that's the highest resolution, or if they're taking the resolution from the Quest 2.
It's for the top men, the highest resolution.
So, and the other thing is, if you're starting out at $500, that puts you right at the PSVR 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bundle's $600, I think, for the Horizon bundle. So, okay, so you're a consumer, you want to get into VR, you have a PS5.
Mm-hmm.
You can choose between the much more beefier PSVR 2 that's going to have to be linked to your PS5,
By a single cable.
or you can get the Quest 3 for $500, but you're going to be playing standalone games on the Quest 3.
Mm-hmm.
In my mind, the better deal is the PSVR 2, because you're also going to get, the Resident Evils and stuff like that, and the fidelity is going to be better. So I think this is kind of a weird place because Meta positioned itself as a cheap headset so they could get people into Horizon Worlds, which was never going to happen, but the Zuck wanted it to happen. So that's what they tried. This new headset is, and this doesn't seem to be replacing Quest 2 as it is an alternative. So it's like a more expensive version. It's like a new, how there's like iPhone, I have in the notes, iPhone Pro Max, right? That kind of thing. I just think it's weird. I don't necessarily know if there's a market for this. To be honest, I don't know if there's a market for a lot of Meta's headsets, whether it be their $1,200, $1,300, whatever it is, Quest Pro.
There is exactly a market of exactly one person for all this stuff.
And is it Mark?
Yes, it is Mark Zuckerberg.
No. So yeah, I just think it's weird. I hope it's a good headset, but now it's like the thing was your headset was. The Quest 2 was successful because it was cheap. It was a good headset. I think it was more successful because it was cheap, though, and people were curious. As you push that price up, it loses that virtue, and you get closer and closer to the beefier headsets, and you lose its huge... Now, those other headsets don't have standalone games, but does that really bother you? Because you're going to get way beefier visuals with those other headsets. I don't know.
But you don't have to buy the second thing that allows you to use the headset.
Which is a gaming PC.
Or a PS5.
Or PS5, yeah. You don't have to have
Which people still believe you can't just find.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming.
I work in retail, buddy.
I know that face. Okay.
People still think it's $1,000 to get a PS5.
Let me ask you, as a Quest 2 owner.
I don't want to answer it.
What do you think of the Quest? Is this...
They haven't shown the specs yet, right?
No, not that I've seen.
I don't.
It's the top.
But it's the tip top. At least it's not a Quest Pro.
Okay,
So-
that's a pretty lukewarm response.
because I don't like. Contextually, the Quest 3 is going to be better than the Quest 2.
Yes,
We have seen the showcase. We've seen the games that are going to be on the Quest 3. It looks very obviously better.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Asgard's Wrath 2, which is confusing because you can't get Asgard's Wrath 1 on the Quest. you gotta get it on PC.
That was PC. Yep.
So there's that. But
Did they ever port it?
no, they never did.
Really?
Yeah,
Weird.
they ported Medal of Honor Above and Beyond, but they didn't port
Weird.
Asgard's Wrath. But so I can't say much either because I guess I don't. I play my Quest. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here.
It's okay. Say whatever you want because we're about to get into the variety story.
Well, the Quest, I got the Quest 2 because cool ass VR games wirelessly for a cheap price.
Exactly.
You know, the Quest 3, it's like, cool, this is the next thing. It's going to have more games, better looking, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's kind of the obvious, like, why would you get this? Like, well, these are the reasons that contextually from what's the difference between the PS4 and the PS3? What do you think is the difference? It's a better one. Like,
yeah, but I would assume this is not that big of a leap.
Well, if the specs aren't out yet, we don't know that. Yeah.
But we still know that it's Snapdragon or whatever. So it's still running.
But it's a new version of Snapdragon.
But isn't So this is my limited technical knowledge. But isn't that Snapdragon made for? Isn't that architecture a mobile architecture?
I mean, Android is the same architecture since the mid 2000s. It's just a updated version. So
yeah,
it would be more powerful. It would be more.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but relative to like a new console generation, it is that leap in technological jump, console generation. Would you speculate that that's a similar jump between the Quest 2's what's the word I'm looking for? Processor and the new processor?
Oh, it could be.
I mean, it could be, relatively speaking.
Could be. I mean, yeah. Look at the difference between the Switch and the Quest and the Steam Deck.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they're both run on. Well, no, that's unfair because the Switch is basically a cell phone processor. Like the Switch is basically whereas
you could get 60 frames out of Tears of the Kingdom.
Whereas Steam Deck is usually
but
specialized.
There's also the OLED Switch, which I don't remember. Was it just a screen or is that?
It's just a screen. It's a screen and 60 and like bigger memory.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be better probably marginally, but not like it's not PS. I don't think it'll be PSVR 2 level of like graphics.
Well, sure, yeah, of course, it can't be.
But for those who didn't buy a Quest 2 because they wanted a little more from it, it's probably that a little more.
Alrighty.
But until we get the actual specs, I'm not gonna sit here and.
Well, I will say that Yaroslav Beck, who made Beat Saber, founder of Beat Saber, was asked a question about the new tracking methods for the Quest 3, and his response was, "It's good, don't worry."
Okay, nice. Well, that's.
We also have to worry about with Apple's thing today, the AR, because it's like it's no longer like it doesn't seem like if people are crazy about VR anymore, it's now going to be like AR.
So
instead.
I don't. Okay, you want to talk about that Apple announcement? Here's the main problem with VR, right? VR is inconvenient. No matter what you're doing with your headset, it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
So, like, we talked about that commercial for, I forget which headset. I want to say it's Quest 2. There's a woman. She's in a recording studio.
It was the Quest Pro.
She's got her band around her. She's editing music with her Quest Pro. Whoa, look at that. In reality, she gets up, she spends a couple minutes, not even more minutes on makeup, on hair. She gets to the studio, she puts on the Quest Pro. She completely screws up her hair and makeup because she just put something on her face. They leave to go eat lunch. She has a ring around her eyes. Everyone's wondering why that woman has rings around her eyes, right? So it's like the reality of it is just there are so many like accessibility barriers. People that wear glasses, you can go on and on and on. I'm sure Apple has thought of that. I'm sure they have contingencies for things like that. But when you're putting something on your head, at some point, that is just not as convenient as holding a phone. It's just not, right?
No, it's not. Not at all.
So no matter how many ways you go to compensate, like I watched part of the trailer, and there's a guy who was looking at his pictures with his headset on. And it's like, how long are you going to do that until, okay, that's cool, but I don't want this weight on my head.
Right.
Or I'm getting sweaty. Or
I'd
rather just look at my phone.
Until this tech is as theoretically as small as the Google Glass was, I don't think that's going to be a thing.
And that's still going strong, right?
No, it's not. It could have been. I don't know. Like, I think the Google Glass was cool as hell, but
sure.
But it was just kind of,
They still,
5 years too
Google
early.
is still developing it.
Yeah.
Wait, that's not something they've canceled?
No, it's kind of.
It's something I think they stopped selling it.
They stopped selling it.
Yeah.
They shelved a lot of it, and they've been slowly developing it under a different version of Google under Google Enterprises.
Oh, okay. Maybe that's what Keen Levine's working on. All right. Are we ready for this? Okay. So listen, I'm just gonna level with you. Usually, did I say this at the beginning of the show? I don't know.
Yeah, kind of. You were alluding to it.
So we look at a story, we break it down, we try to do bullet points, we have a discussion. Bobby Kotick had an interview with Variety titled "Bobby Kotick Breaks His Silence," and at the top, Bobby Kotick has this, he's got this picture of him. His hands are folded and like positioned in front of his chin, and it looks like who was that? Was it JFK leaning over the table making decisions that could destroy the world with nuclear bombs? It's similar in that Bobby Kotick, he's got this weight on his shoulders. He's leaning forward. He's stoic. He's serious. He's looking at the camera. Really, he's looking past that. He's looking into the future of Blizzard, future of video games, maybe the future of baseball. I don't know.
Sitting there with his weak chin.
Sitting there with his weak chin, with his devil horns. He's trying to suppress them.
Milk white toast.
Human piece of garbage. Okay, so
face.
So it's a puff piece. It was written by Cynthia Littleton. We're gonna dig into it. But I do want to say sincerely one thing off the top. Kotick in the piece does discuss that he has gotten like anti-Semitic harassment. He talks about his kids receiving death threats. So sincerely, we're gonna make fun of him. We're gonna dunk whatever. But right now, I just want to say harassment is never the answer, and it's totally unacceptable. That's horrible, right? Especially to his kids. Like, I didn't even know he had kids, but his kids have absolutely nothing to do with the company that he is the CEO with or whatever, right?
Right.
I think he is 100% in what's the word I'm looking for? I totally criticizable. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. It's fair game to criticize him, to make fun of him, whatever. He's a person in major positions of power. He's wealthy. I think all that's fine. It doesn't mean you can't be honest in certain things, but when it comes to, I just wanted to say that off the bat, I never think that harassment, especially when it comes to something like video games, is ever a solution, right? And I think we all agree with that. So, beside that, so there's a lot. We'll highlight some quotes. We'll discuss things. I don't know how this is going to go. Kotick says Activision is preparing to release data drawn from the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission that he hopes will combat the perception that Activision was run like a frat house. If you do need background, Activision Blizzard was sued by like 60,000 people that the company had a frat boy frat house culture. A whole bunch of stuff happened since then. It's like recapping Game of Thrones. So at this point, just know a lot has happened since then. Kotick denies there was a systemic problem of harassment at the company, saying, quote, "We had every possible form of investigation done, and we did not have a systemic issue with harassment, ever. We didn't have any of what were mischaracterizations reported in the media, but what we did have was a very aggressive labor movement working hard to try and destabilize the economy." In quote, Variety goes on to interview a few people who talk up Kotick, and we'll get into this. There's some ridiculous quotes. They talk about Kotick like he's the smartest man who's ever been a CEO or looked at a video game before. But really, the most important part is that he asserts that what has been going down in Activision Blizzard is not a systemic harassment issue, but some kind of almost like a conspiracy from a labor movement to destabilize the company. He says he's not anti-union because he was in Moneyball, and he's part of SAG-AFTRA because he acted for 12 seconds.
Yes.
And is he in other stuff? I don't know. But he's not anti-union because he's part of SAG-AFTRA. So if he's in SAG-AFTRA...
Oh, not just that. He's the only CEO in the Fortune 500 to be in a union.
So if he did that, why would he, try and union bust to protect his own company? Why would a CEO
Well, why would he also
that?
blame it on unions as well?
So do we have any high level takes to get in?
No,
he has acted in exactly one movie.
Okay, he has.
I don't have
Moneyball.
any high level takes.
And in that movie, he played a greedy owner.
He was uncredited.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
Didn't have the balls to put his name out there.
So,
Because Moneyball.
that was good one. Do we have an initial reaction? I'm sorry. You took a drink of your coffee, so.
Oh, initial reaction. Yeah, fuck you, Bobby Kotick.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I'm empty head.
Okay. So I have a lot, and I do want to get into specific things in the story. The first thing I want to tackle is the idea that, hey, you know what? Okay, Kotick says something about a labor movement trying to destabilize the company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first of all, the journalistic failing of not, is there a follow-up? Did like what? That's major. I mean, the CEO is telling you that there is a movement to destabilize his entire company. So is there any follow-up on that? Is there any investigation into that?
Right.
Is there, like, I don't know. Is there anything there? We don't know, because apparently nothing was asked or nothing was touched on.
Right.
But let's just say for a minute that it's true, that nothing ever happened in Activision Blizzard. It's all been a big misunderstanding, and it's just been people overreacting. Okay, you still wrote the Fran Townsend letter, which was horrific, because while this thing is coming out about a frat boy culture, you wrote, I'm never going to get over this, you drafted a letter for a female executive that was sent under her name, and then she took flack for that, and that's just how it went. And now we know he wrote it, but it's apparently just not that big of a deal. Jen O'Neill left after being named co-leader with Mike Ybarra.
For Blizzard, yeah.
Because she wasn't going to be paid the same amount. They did offer her a new contract, but that was after she had already resigned, right? Okay, so there's another failure. Again, irrelevant of what has happened at the company, you have failed to keep top talent because you apparently weren't going to pay people the same. If this is much ado about nothing, is J. Allen Brack coming back? Like, a bunch of people have left Blizzard, seemingly in connection with this. Are you telling me all of that was just people overreacting? J. Allen Brack's resignation, he had been at Blizzard for like 20 years or whatever. He overreacted and resigned.
Yeah. Is
he going to come back? Like, well, what's the solution there? You handled the Blitzchung thing, which I will never forget, horrifically wrong. And again, what does Bobby Kotick have to do with that? I don't know, but I'll tell you this, if I'm the CEO of Activision Blizzard and some streamer in China makes a pro-democracy statement and gets censored, I'm coming out and saying, no, you know what, we support that guy. I'm not going to worry about my marketability in China, right? I'm sorry. That's not what Bobby Kotick did. So if you're not brave enough to come out in support of a pro-democracy streamer, then what are you doing? So there's other stuff that Activision Blizzard has just sucked at besides the harassment stuff. So even if what Bobby Kotick said is true, you still have all this other stuff that your company sucks at. And all that is besides the fact that your games are microtransaction hellscapes and that they prey on people that are susceptible to gambling addictions, to fucking impulse purchases and shit like that. So if you even concede that fact, there's still all these other problems that I think are just unacceptable. I'll never get over the Blitzchung thing. It's not hard to say, hey, we support democracy. Instead, it was this flaccid apology that tried as much as it could not to mention what happened, but to apologize it. It was speaking out of the side of your mouth, right? What's the other term for it? Double speak, right? Like trying to apologize without offending the thing that you really care about, which is marketability in the Chinese market. Okay, some other stuff here. I'm gonna keep talking. If you guys want to jump in, just
there's a lot of info.
Just hit me in the face.
I read this thing. I mean, I sent you you guys' message. You know, I read this thing, and I was disassociating while reading it because of like how many roadblocks I ran into that was just like, this is not true, or this is unbelievable. The writing of this article just did not do either any of the work they needed to provide the truth.
Yeah. Well, so let's get into another specific here. So Don Ostroff, who Variety calls a TV/digital veteran who has known Kotick for years and joined Activision's board in 2020. So she must be someone who's super, like, who comes at this blank slate, right? If she's been part of Activision's board for 3 years, she must have zero inclination as to whether or not Bobby Kotick sucks or anything like that, or whether or not the company shouldn't be doing what it's doing. She said, quote, Activision is a creative company through and through. They're so protective of the creative process. He really believes in he being Kotick, really believes in allowing his creators to get the games right and to make sure the players are first and foremost in their minds. They know their consumers so well. A paraphrase of Ostroff's words coming from Littleton is, quote, that fealty to cutting-edge technology and games that consistently wow hardcore gamers is what sets Activision apart from other gaming giants, including Electronic Arts, Take-Two Interactive, and Ubisoft, end quote. All right, so if you know, if you cover the games industry, if you know stuff about the games industry, do you write that sentence? No, because it is patently false. Activision Blizzard is just another shitty AAA studio. It's a AAA company, right? That does this. Now, I'm not defending Electronic Arts, Take-Two, or Ubisoft. They all can go to hell too. But to somehow argue that one is better than the other is just patently false. No one would characterize it like that. So, if I am writing this Variety article, and I am not familiar with games, one, why was I put on this story? Because it would be like if you had me cover something I'm not into. I don't know, fucking building houses. I don't know the first thing about it. So I'm not going to talk about companies in a context that I don't understand things. That's a failure of Variety's editors, and that's a failure of the journalists that wrote this. Because if you're writing some statement about that makes a fact about the industry, you have to be sure that fact is characterized correctly. And it's just not. Doesn't matter who you ask. Activision Blizzard is not better or worse than these other companies, than EA or whatever. They're all in the same shitty plane. And to argue otherwise is ridiculous. Another line. Longtime Kotick colleagues and competitors say he is exacting, but Activision's results and track record speak for themselves. The company has been able to keep growing by prioritizing quality over quantity and setting a high bar for improving the gaming experience. Richard, you shook your head.
Well, yeah, no, just because of the consistent, the first from Dawn, her quote about the fealty to cutting edge technology and games that consistently wow hardcore gamers. There's that part, and then of course the prioritizing quality over quantity. And I keep thinking, and I'm like, but it's Call of Duty. You only have one game. Like there's one game, and you are only in your position because Call of Duty stays in
it's
the
brand
zeitgeist. Yeah,
it's
that's
not
all
quality.
it is.
Has nothing to do with quality.
So if you like right now, there are a lot of companies that can do this, but particularly like Disney or Hershey, like they could not do anything for like a couple of years and be just fine because of the consistency of just that brand recognition.
Yes.
And so Call of Duty has been able to do that since 2007, since Modern Warfare 1, arguably Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
But
that would be when it, I think, really hit mainstream.
Right.
So, okay, I want to cut off at the pass here what I think are different or are competing visions of success, right?
Yeah.
And this is another sports analogy, so I apologize. Somebody posted a comment last week saying that we need a sports sounder. Connor, get working on that right now and give me a sports sounder. No, just kidding. But if you're listening, Connor just gave me the biggest middle finger I've ever seen. Okay, so how do we judge success in the games industry, right? On some levels, Electronic Arts and Blizzard and all these shitty companies are super successful. This should be the goal, right? Mm-hmm. If you're someone like Dawn Ostroff, who doesn't know anything about the games industry, apparently,
she works in music,
or Middleton, Cynthia Littleton, then this is a picture of success, right? But like what I would compare it to is the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are
it's their year.
It's always their year. What are you talking about?
The Dallas Cowboys are the most financially successful NFL franchise, right? It's like a couple $2 billion. They're called America's team, blah, blah, blah. You know what else they have been for the past 25 years?
Losers.
Mediocre garbage. So who hasn't been mediocre garbage? New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens,
Raiders.
The New York fucking Giants. Which would you rather be? You want to have a couple Super Bowls? You want to be the Patriots? Or do you want to be the Dallas Cowboys and have Shannon Sharp and Skip Bayless bickering about nothing existential nothingness on morning ESPN debate shows,
Sharp was
but
right.
never win. But never win, or do you want to be the teams that do not have as big of a market share, but are respectful because they aren't jokes and they produce quality on-field results? Which one would you rather be? That would be the analogy. Because no, you know, you could argue that Activision Blizzard is the goal for a game company. I would argue otherwise, because a lot of what they do is just shitty microtransactions. So that's to cut off, because what you said I agree with, but the game executive doesn't think of success that way.
No,
because they're morons.
Yes.
So you have to cut that off at the pass. And I think a lot of the people that were interviewed here, that's how they think of success too, is just pure, you know, in their minds, the Star Wars sequels were successful, the latest ones.
Yes.
Because they all made $1 billion.
They made money, yes.
But in no one's mind that watched them do they think they're successes. Because besides The Force Awakens, which was good, the other two were complete trash fires. So it's like they weren't good. Anyway, moving on. Larry Kasanoff, a film producer, says, quote, Activision Blizzard have really held everyone to a higher technological standard. There are a lot of games like Candy Crush and Call of Duty, but none of them are as good. There's something about the playability and technicality to them. They're always at the top. So there's just all kinds of games. Call of Duty games are just all over the place.
Yeah.
Everybody has a military shooter because, you know, it's 2007. So they're just all over the place now. Candy Crush thing, he may actually be right about that. But again, it's not because Candy Crush is good. It's name recognition, brand recognition. It has nothing to do with quality or technicality or savviness or holding your hands at your chin and looking stoically into the future as you ponder the future of Activision Blizzard. Has nothing to do with that shit. It's stuff that is far less substantial, and it's what's the word I'm looking for? You know, when you look at something, you're looking.
A gaze.
Not a gaze. Not the verb. I mean, it's superficial. It's superficial. It's superficial, right? So it has nothing to do with like the technological. And look, there is a lot of talent at Activision Blizzard. I'm not going to. I love Diablo 4 so far.
Yeah, all right.
But I think that a lot of that talent has been wasted.
It has.
And slammed down
It has.
because of a corporate. Well, one, because of harassment. Two, because of a corporate attitude that says we need microtransactions and everything. And again, if you're a film producer, if you're a journalist and you're writing something and you bring on a film producer and the film producer says, well, I think the Dallas Cowboys are the best because they sell all their tickets. So they're the best NFL franchise. That is clearly not true. You wouldn't print that. It'd be embarrassing to print it.
Yeah.
But they did. And it's infuriating. Go ahead.
It's very wrong because, you know, even as first line, have Activision Blizzard have held everyone to a higher technological standard. They haven't, because they recycle Call of Duty every year. They don't do anything, and that's part of the problem. Like, there were several times in the interview that I don't think it was Kotick who said it, but it was other people who said like how he's changed everything, like, since, you know, he's been with Activision Blizzard, but realistic, and how much he's done, but he hasn't done anything.
No.
They made a hit with Modern Warfare 2, and they've been riding those coattails ever since.
Yes.
Just because they're at the top, and they honestly can unfortunately do no wrong. How many people are still bitching about how Warzone is performing as a game itself? There's a lot of people playing it, but they're not doing anything to fix these issues. And it's infuriating to kind of have this article talking this person up who literally just sits around and doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure being a CEO is hard.
Okay, no. Let's debunk that myth, because recently there was a man who was the CEO of 3 different companies at the same time.
But
If you can hold 3 jobs and still have the time to fuck about and be Elon Musk, I'm talking about Elon Musk if you didn't figure that out. If you can hold those 3 jobs and still have time to fuck about and be Elon Musk, those aren't hard jobs.
That's a good point. And I'll concede, because I really don't know. You know, because it's like, is it okay? Relative to how much Bobby Kotick is compensated versus how much your average Blizzard developer is compensated, is that relative pay difference really because Kotick's job is that much harder? No, it's not. There's just no way, right?
Yeah.
Capitalism's way more complicated than that. It has nothing to do with how hard your job is. There's other stuff that gets into that shit. But at the same time, I'm sure being an executive takes a lot of time and it's difficult. But at the same time, could I run Activision Blizzard? Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. But I mean, how hard is it to say, are you still making Candy Crush? Okay. Are you harassing people to make sure that, that they're paying for microtransactions on the same? Okay, great. I don't know. I think that's all the quotes that I pulled out. One more thing real quick. At the end of the story, Bobby Kotick, he didn't say it. I assume it was paraphrasing because they talked about, Kotick's thinking more about the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal and, he's mulling different options, fucking whatever. And he talks about how, hey, if Microsoft doesn't get to buy us, what does that say about the U.S. games market? We're going to fall behind Tencent. We're going to fall behind Nintendo. We're going to fall behind whatever, right? What's going to happen to us? I just want everyone to remember, it's important, Microsoft's predicament is self-imposed. The only reason Microsoft is in this spot right now is because they spent a solid chunk of the Xbox One years fucking around trying to reinvent the wheel instead of just making a console that made games. And then Phil Spencer had to come in, and it was a trash fire, and there was Xbox Game Pass, and when we last talked about a Phil Spencer interview, they were still trying to put out that fucking fire. So, Bobby, it's not like Microsoft is this great company that has done everything right for the past 10 years, and suddenly, by no fault of their own, a bunch of liberal socialist Marxists in the EU or in the UK don't want your precious merger to go through. That's not what's happening. They fucked around for a while. Their console lost out to the PS4 because it was clearly the better option, and now you've dug yourself into this hole, and they're trying to buy their way out of it because of their own greed and their own mismanagement. So it has nothing to do... Anyway. Okay. Do we have anything else to say about Bobby Kotick? Or Activision Blizzard? Or...
I had a conversation 2 days ago at work with somebody who was buying the Saboteur on PS3.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And he's like, oh, I saw the game, it looked really awesome, and he's
tell him
like,
to watch my video. Just kidding. Continue.
Shit. And he's like, oh, Pandemic was great.
Yes.
And I was like, yeah, Pandemic was great. And then Activision bought them. And they bought Raven Studios.
Wait, was it Activision?
Yeah. And then Pandemic shut down.
Yeah, I think EA bought them.
Yes, EA bought them. I'm sorry. But it made me think this is still gonna.
Yeah, your train of thought's correct.
Activision bought Raven Software. Did great games. They bought Radical Entertainment that did really great games. They bought Beanox, which made two of the very best Spider-Man games and some very, very fucking good Transformers games. And they said, these games are cool. You're going to work on Call of Duty now.
Yeah.
And so all of that talent, all of that creativity, as much as they were license-based games, it just got squandered to be placed in this thing that's only they care about.
Yeah.
And then even then, they brought back Crash Bandicoot, the remake to huge fanfare.
Insane trilogy,
and I feel like that wouldn't have even happened if Sony didn't come up to them and be like, hey, could you do a remake, please? And then they made a fourth game, which was very good. And then they're like, hey, we're making another Crash thing. And everybody's like, cool, Crash 5. And then now it's some dumb Crash party game.
I didn't even know this.
It's like a multiplayer party game, which I don't know if it has live service stuff or I don't know. But they were hyping up the announcement, and when they did it and they announced it, everyone collectively was like, this isn't what we want. This is what we wanted. We wanted a new Crash game. And now there's no hype behind it.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's happened within the last couple months. So
okay. Well, I mean, and they retroactively added microtransactions to the Insane trilogy, didn't they? Wasn't that the game?
Oh, if they did, I have no clue.
I'm pretty sure it was that. Do you have tidbits?
I do.
Play the tidbit sounder. I'm gonna look that up.
All right.
What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and and there are tids. And Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
Both of you were tippy tapping, so I had to do the thing myself.
Okay, maybe it was not. Well, I'm seeing Crash 4. I'm looking for the Insane Trilogy. I don't know. I don't see it. So maybe it wasn't. I thought it was the Insane Trilogy. Okay, it doesn't matter.
Yuji Naka is in trouble.
Oh, jeez.
He's in big trouble. I reported on this a couple months ago, but Yuji Naka is charged. Yuji Naka is the creator of Sonic, not the sole creator, but
sure.
Anyways, he was charged with violating Japan's Financial Instruments and Exchange Act by illegally buying shares based on insider information. At the time he was working on Balan Wonderworld, he was with Square Enix, in which he had insider information that a new Final Fantasy game and Dragon Quest were being developed. So he essentially invested in stocks because before the announcement of those games, of course, you know that the stocks are going to go up playing the game. Anyways, he pled guilty to the charges. He was arrested a couple months back, but in March, he pled guilty to the charges, saying that, quote, there was no doubt he was guilty in taking part in an insider trading scheme. The prosecutor's office ordered a fine of 2.5 million yen, which is $17,800 in American and USD, and a supplementary penalty of 170 million yen, which is $1.2 million, claiming that Yuji Naka showed no signs of remorse. A final decision will be made on July 7th. He is looking at upwards of 2 to 5 years in prison.
Oh my God. What a weird thing to have happen.
Weird thing. Yes, indeed.
Whatever. Okay.
Quick tidbits. Quicker to these next two. Summer Games Done Quick is concluded with a total of $2.2 million being raised for Doctors Without Borders. I love watching the Summer Games Done Quick series. I don't know if you've ever taken a gander.
I have. That's one of those things that I see like people talk about in tweets and stuff.
Yeah.
I want to look more into it, but I just never do.
There's some really cool stuff there. If you choose an interesting game that interests you and see how like guys figure out how to get past certain things, it's very, very, very cool. People, not just guys, people. So I talked about this, I think 2 weeks ago, but Metal Gear Solid 3 voice actors are not invited back. Mm-hmm. However, the original voice lines will be used. So it's going to be their original voices. They'll be used. I don't have a problem with this because that was a very solid
it was
voice acting, and if they well, yeah, but if they have high quality recordings, like it'll be fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think I agree with that. It would just be cool to see, like, I don't know, to hear David Hayter's voice again and know that it's like it's new.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just the romantic in me. But
no, I agree. And then this is the last one of the night. Aspyr has canceled the KOTOR 2 DLC update. KOTOR 2 was released for the Switch last year, but technical problems marred the game after a couple of updates. Though this game is in a playable state now. I guess there was like you could not beat the game. Aspyr had promised to include cut content from KOTOR 2 as a free DLC for those who purchased the game on the Switch. But on June 2nd, Aspyr announced on Twitter that the cut content DLC would be canceled. Aspyr is providing consumers with an additional key to any of the other Star Wars games that they have published for the Switch. They have not come out and stated why it was canceled, but a lot of people are mad because...
Oh, yeah. I think justifiably.
Sure. Yes. But also that cut content like has easily been patched into like other versions of the games.
When we look back on the Switch, I think we'll look back on it as a big success story for a lot of different reasons. But the two sort of the two hidden like bad themes with the Switch are Joy-Con bullshit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And just a crap ton of bad ports.
The
Pillars of Eternity port is unplayable. You can play it, but the text doesn't load in sometimes, so you can't read, and if you can't read, it kills the game.
Yeah.
And that as far as I know, that was never fixed on the Switch, so it completely killed my playthrough on the Nintendo Switch. So a lot of like really bad, not great ports.
And Disco Elysium has an unavoidable bug which breaks the game.
Yeah, but is that a game? That's Disco Elysium itself, or is that just on the Switch?
It's just on.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's horrible. All right. Well, don't get Disco Elysium on the Switch. Okay. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. We didn't do Richard's Gaming Discourse FM at the beginning of the show. I apologize.
No, that's all right. Check out Gaming Discourse FM if you want to listen to a selection of gaming music from the past and the present. We make some good choices.
Okay. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.